Hey, hi. I was just checking my bingo card and my bucket list. Fighting fascism? Not there. I'm betting you can say the same, but yet here we are. Welcome to Consent of the Governed. I'm Vivian Lombard. If you have not yet visited our website, if you're watching on YouTube, the link should be below. Otherwise, it's cotg2025.com. On the homepage, there is a welcome video explaining more about what we are about. And the very, very short Cliff's Notes version is getting through the chaos now, making sense of it, what we can be doing now, what we can be doing for the short term, middle term, long term. So hopefully our descendants won't end up here again in the future. That will take most of us. I'd say all of us, but we're not going to get all of us. That's just the reality of life. Yeah, I guess maybe I should tell you something about myself so you can decide whether you have anything in common. That whether you might even not like me, I don't know. I am the 11th generation American immigrant. 1630, actually, 395 years ago this month, my ancestors arrived in what is now Massachusetts. In 1630, there were 4,646 immigrants, and everybody else were Native Americans. I make that point for a reason. On the other side of my family, I'm first generation, so a little bit of both. I have suffered discrimination in my life, mostly when I was younger for my Asian heritage. As I've gotten older, the truth is I have suffered far more discrimination as a woman than I ever did for my Asian heritage. And I'm not comparing any discrimination at all that I've experienced at all that's comparable to anything that a person of color experiences. As far as I'm concerned, they're not even close. Um, I'm 60. I don't like that number. I just turned 60 recently. Um, my body maybe feels that way, but the rest of me doesn't. I'm closer to 27, 28, maybe there. Let's see. Oh, sandwich generation. Mom moved in last year. That's its own story in and of itself. Happily married. We have twins in college. Both have autism. One was diagnosed in kindergarten. The other one we didn't officially have diagnosed until they went back in person after COVID because we started seeing some behaviors that indicated he might need some extra support. I have worked a variety of jobs, private and public sector. Everything from a maid, dental assistant, nurse's aide, bus girl, filing clerk. That was fun. Temp work in business. I've run businesses. At the time that I was hired by the FAA, I was working 3 jobs concurrently. So I do understand how tough times can go. In fact, my parents went bankrupt when I was younger, and I distinctly remember shopping at the Army surplus store and eating powdered eggs and powdered milk for a very long time as a regular part of our diet, and I don't recommend it, and I don't want to go back to that ever. I worked for the FAA for 25 years as an air traffic controller. During that time, I was also a very staunch union activist. Every level, local, regional, national, I did something, and I did a lot of it. When I had my kids, I'd moved down to a lower level facility, which had less volume of traffic, which worked out really well having the twins. The I got involved with the PTA president for a lot of years. PTA committee chairperson on every committee pretty much known to man. So there is that. After I retired, I became an author, a self-published author, which you might be able to see part of the cover up there for one of the books. The one under my name right now is To Promote Autism Understanding, which maybe Kennedy should read that and a few others like that because I really don't think he truly understands ASD at all. No. Um, yeah, I'm being kind. He doesn't have a clue. The other stuff I write is under a pen name and it's not safe for work, so I'm trying to keep this family friendly, mostly. So we don't need to discuss that. The other thing is that I am intelligent and I am not afraid to own it. But I'm also smart enough to know I am not the smartest person out there. I am not an expert in everything. I, I listen to some of these people claiming how genius they are in every aspect of everything. I'm sorry, that is just impossible. I am smart enough to know where to go for reliable, accurate information. I consider, I don't care if your IQ is 105. If you know where to go for accurate information, reliable information to make your own personal decisions, you are smarter than someone like Elon Musk who thinks he knows everything about everything. So that's my personal opinion. Take it or leave it, but that's what I think. One of my relative strengths is I'm a voracious reader and I take in from all sorts of disciplines. I may be reading philosophy one day or economics another day. Or it's just if you don't learn something new every day, and as far as I'm concerned, you're wasting your life. You should be learning something new, even if it's your spouse's has some new thing that they like and you never heard of, and whatever. You should be learning something at least a little bit every day. And for me, my way my mind works is that it kind of all percolates in there. And if you are not of the Gen X or Boomer generation, you might need to look that up. But we used to percolate coffee, but it bubbles around, we'll say, the information. And eventually I see patterns, if there are patterns to be seen, and usually between disparate information where, whoa, wait a minute. And I'm able to make sense of the chaos is, I guess, pretty much the way to do it. And which was what air traffic control was, is you make order out of chaos in air traffic. Now, whether I had the skill before I had the job or I had the job, developed the skill more, I don't know. Doesn't matter. It works. But I tend to be able to see what you can do to change one direction. You change this little bit of data, just this little bit. What does that mean down here? And a concrete example in air traffic is you have two planes 40 miles apart. They're at the same altitude and they're going to cross real close to each other. Well, if I turn this plane 5 degrees instead of descending or climbing, what will that do to that track, but to that pattern? Oh, now we'll have separation. It doesn't take them that far out of their way, but and as soon as I know them past, I could just send them direct, no problem. And I look at things, I try to see things in a micro and a macro scale. So I will try and give you some of that, but that's so you know where I'm coming from. I don't see things just as, okay, this is the one little thing here. I see things on a bigger scale, but I can relate to them on a smaller scale. Maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. So, before we get into the fascism part, I want to talk about bias because we all have some. And if you think you don't, you're lying to yourself. Biases are not inherently good or bad, they just are. It's like emotions, it's what you do with that knowledge. You just have to know it, acknowledge it, and then account for it when you make your decision. So if you're reading information and you, oh, okay, this really upsets me. Now, are you upset because of the facts? Are you upset because it confirms a bias you already have? Is it something else? You question yourself to make sure that you are not allowing your biases to rule you. Same with the emotions. You don't allow them to rule you. Now, I wasn't going to talk through all because I'd be like sitting through one of those long presentations at work, and that's just, I don't want to do that. Did enough of those. But I think all of you are smart enough to know that if you want to read more, you can pause the video and read it. I just wanted to bring up on Trump. He's got a bunch of biases that seem fairly obvious to someone observing. But the bottom one, the self-serving one, he has that in spades. Crediting successes to self and failures to others. People who cannot accept responsibility for their own actions, especially for someone who was an air traffic controller, is one of the worst types of people you could be. To be an air traffic controller, you have to be able to accept what you've done, when instructions you've given, did it contribute, did it save, did it not, whatever. But you have to be able to do that and live with yourself. And the blaming it on other people, that's just not something we do. So, deep red MAGA, and I specifically use the phrase deep red. There are people who are in the MAGA sortish camp that we consider, but they're not really MAGA. The deep red MAGA is a completely different animal than people who I thought he'd do something for the economy. I thought he'd help with the IVF. I thought um, he was a disruptor and politics have gotten too stagnant or whatever. Those people we can reach. Deep red MAGA, we can't reach. Don't waste your time. When this is all said and done, we can try and really address what's going on with them. But right now, they're not going to be ones who are going to be able to say, hey, the Constitution, it's in danger, our due process. They're going to be able to haul people off the street. They don't care. All right. And we also have our barely reacting congressional Democrats. And I know there are a lot of us who have been very vocal, we'll say, about that. And this also includes legacy media, as far as I'm concerned, because they're not doing what they should be doing. They are not naming what is going on. The days of Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather and Barbara Walters for us older people, we're not seeing that in most of legacy media. We're starting to see a little bit of a trending to, well, maybe we're not going to give the nod to the administration that they're not lying to us and they're giving us good information, because they're not. Pretty much, if they open their mouths, they're lying at this point. Um, what's the problem here is that they're acting like it's business as usual, like this is just politics, or it's mostly politics. It stopped being mostly about politics when they started gutting agencies without congressional approval. It stopped being mostly about politics when they stopped spending money that Congress already appropriated for services we expected. It stopped being mostly about politics when they started rendering people on the basis of maybe a tattoo and a sports jersey to a place that it violates civil rights and torture. What is it? Conventions against torture. Okay, it stopped mostly being about politics when they started picking people off the street while they're masked and no IDs and just hauling them off and kidnapping them. And we had without warrants. When they started breaking windows and breaking into people's homes and things like that, it stopped being about politics a long, long time ago. Okay, but they're acted like you fight the fight, you can win. Yeah, you know. And that's from the American President, which if you haven't watched the movie, I definitely suggest you do. But they're missing the reality. What America needs at this moment in time, in this span of our history, we need to fight the fights that need fighting. It does not matter. I mean, it will matter long term if we win. We can't win every fight. We can't win every battle. But if we don't fight, we have no chance of winning anything. We already lost if we don't fight. So the people who aren't really understanding what's going on or think they can ride it out, you're wrong. You keep doing that, we're going to be in a much worse position. All right, I got a little hot there. Is it fascism or is it something else? Now, some types of government, monarchy, yeah, he wants to be a king, but that ain't happening. Not even close. Oligarchy or tech oligarchy, which was that particular term came from a reporter, I believe in the UK. I'll try to see if I could find the link for her TED Talk, who was actually targeted um, on that side. And then, the Christian nationalists, they're thinking that that's what we want, we need. Well, now here we get to the ones where we're kind of living right now, I would say. Fascism, it's pretty close. I mean, autocratic government, dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, forcible expression of opposition. We're getting there. If we're not already there, we're getting there. Totalitarian, I don't know. I mean, they're trying to do this. They're not even close to having it close to having it us there. And the Christian nationalists are the ones I'd be worried about on that more than Trump, personally. But it doesn't really matter what we call it for someone who is an author to say that when the accuracy and the meaning and the um, words matter. The If I say something is gross versus something is vile, there is an emotional difference reaction to those two different words, even though they're synonyms in most instances. So for someone that's an author to say it doesn't matter what we call it, I don't need to be accurate because they're all anti-democracy. That's all we need to know. We don't need to spend all this time. We could do that afterwards. When we're all said and done, we could sit there and figure out what exactly we could call it at what stage. It does not matter right now. The anti-democracy. So democracy that we had, not even 6 months ago, because today is, what is it? Today's the 13th, the 12th of May. Um, we need its consent of the governed because a government's legitimacy and moral right to use state power is only justified and lawful when we, as the people, consent. I don't consent to an awful lot of what's going on in DC right now. And I don't think most of you do either once you start being educated on it if you haven't been yet. And you're just starting the path of what's going on. And I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to be saying some hard truths and some things people aren't going to want to listen to, or they're going to think outright, oh my God, she's nuts. 6 months ago, I might have agreed with you. I no longer, when I have these epiphanies or observations, I no longer question myself. That is how far gone we are at this moment. Because we are in the middle. We are in the midst of a civil war and a holy war concurrently. Yeah, that sounds pretty bad. It didn't arrive with muskets and cannons. It didn't arrive with someone on a horse and hanging lanterns. It didn't arrive with stallions and people in armor. It didn't arrive with slavery and but Civil War. A good portion of it was about secession. Listen up and see if I make any sense. We got the tech bros and the neo-reactionaries. They want authoritarian city-states that are beholden to no one, not the states, not the federal government. They want to run everything they want to run in their own little city-states in our country without being overseen by our laws. That is secession. That means they can dump anything they want into the river and we can't do a thing about it. That is secession. Musk has got, what is it, Snailbook, and they just got voted in Starbase to be incorporated. Teal's got someplace out in Greenland or wants to or something. So Greenland, that's another reason why Trump wants Greenland. Anderson, I think he's doing California, but don't quote me on that one. States, I'm a bit ashamed to admit this because I really wasn't paying attention as much as I could have before all of this, of what was going on around the country, beyond things like the effects of the Dodd decision, because I what's going on for women in that aspect is horrific. But that's a completely different video. Tennessee's been living under a form of, we'll say, fascism, anti-democratic principles for quite some time, and I didn't know that. I know it now. Florida and Texas, I mean, they're pretty much Florida just decided the Highway State Patrol could do immigration. They can work for immigration. Texas, I don't even want to talk about Abbott. Oklahoma recently, I think it was last week, one of their state representatives or senators or something was talking publicly that they didn't have to follow federal law and they weren't going to. That is secession. That is secession. They are the loudest about state rights. And deep red MAGA, the remnants of the Confederacy, That's part of it for them. It's not completely. I'm not really sure that they're thinking that much detail on secession, not like the tech bros in some of these states. But the Holy War, that's deep red MAGA. But the thing is all of them are willing to break our country for their own beliefs. They think their beliefs outweigh ours, and they do not. There are more of us than there are of them. There are more of us who actually have empathy for other people, who actually want a fully functioning government that does provide a safety net, social net, until we can get everything where it needs to be. Well, we don't need nearly as much of it. But because they keep cutting everything, we can't get there. What is saving us right now? And I know that sounds really hopeful because, like, what is she talking about? It could be worse. It could be so much worse because they could actually be working together far more than they are. Now, big business in Wall Street is a faction. They are not part of the Civil War. They are not actually part of the Holy War. Their only concern is making money and making it quickly. That's why they backed Trump, because they thought, ooh, yes, yes, more money, fast. They didn't think in the long terms. Now, the tech bros, Project 2025, which I consider anarchists all the way. Christian nationalists, which is a deep red MAGA, not, you know, silent. Things in common between the last three. Elite white males in charge. Women and children are chattel and extensions of their ego and power. Persecution of non-whites, and we're seeing lots of that. But they're all abusers. Every single last one of them. Now, with abusers, it's all about power and control and the power rush. Intimidation, gaslighting, digital abuse. Oh, yeah. Let's see. We got Musk on X and we have Trump on Truth Social and then all the little deep red magas amplifying all of it. Isolation. How does that apply to us? Blowing up 80 years of alliances. Yeah. Kind of isolating our entire country. I mean, you can read the list. Economic abuse, it's the tariffs. People keep talking about, oh, maybe it's just a, it's going to be worse in a recession. I'm pretty certain of it. You can't take all these firings from the federal government, the federal contractors, put these tariffs in there, and factories don't just appear out of nowhere. They don't just spring from the ground. Businesses plan for those things. They invest in those, and they're not going to want to invest in anything that's not stable. I wouldn't. Now, the Christian nationalism, I recently read something in the Liberal Current. It's called, the author was Toby Buckle, and she was talking about Christian nationalism and American conservatives, and it made it sound like it was more an American issue, or maybe I've just misinterpreted. I probably should go back and read it. And I disagree with that particular assessment. I think Christian nationalism is the ugliest part of the orthodox of Christianity, the elite lording over everyone, enforceable conversion to the faith. Like back to like 300 AD or whatever it was. That's what I think Christian nationalism stems from. Is still because we're seeing this around the world. We're seeing it in Germany. We're seeing it. This is not just an American issue right now. It is not. It's Canada, Australia. It's the fire and brimstone of Christianity. It's what gave us the Crusades. It gave us the Spanish Inquisition. That is that holy war going on, not just within the United States, but around the world. And that is what we cannot fight at this moment in time. But we have to be aware that it is happening because this is the problem. People who believe is this. They are abused and abuser and they're indoctrinated. They have not grown in their faith like most other faiths, where we believe in a loving, forgiving deity, where we believe in we help the poor, we help the needy. We don't we don't walk past and look away. And I'm not religious at all. I'm an agnostic, but I don't believe you look away, period. Have continued the cycle for centuries of abuse instead of breaking the links in the abuse chain. Because abused people become abusers unless there is a break in that chain. And usually that break comes from an abused individual saying, I do not want to treat other people like this way. I do not want to make someone else feel like this. What's scary about Christian nationalism is they don't care about being abused themselves, so long as others are abused more. That's why you hear, I thought he meant other people. I didn't think he meant me. I thought he was only going to deport these people, not my husband, who's been working and supporting our family. I thought he was only going to take away Medicaid for the brown people or the black people. No, I didn't think he was going to take it away from me. That's the deep roots of the ugliest part of Christianity. And you can't help an abused individual if they refuse to admit the abuse or see it. You can't do it. How many women who have been beaten, domestic abuse, don't leave? And it's not because they don't know, but if they refuse to admit the abuse and ask for the help, you can't help them. And I'm sorry, we don't have time. We don't have time to address how deeply rooted this is in so many societies. They're just now they're like cockroaches. They've all been hiding. All of these different factions, they've been hiding. Well, except big business, I guess, and Wall Street. Um, but the other ones, they're going to be kind of hiding like cockroaches, and now they're scurrying out because, oh, wait a minute, the light, it's not that bright on us anymore in a way that's negative to them. Okay, where am I going from here? Big business and Wall Street. All of this, the commonalities on these people. They hate regulations because it reduces their profits. They don't like government because the social safety nets requires them to pay more taxes to help provide this. It's because they don't think we deserve them. That's pretty much what it is. You know, you don't deserve to be helped. And only uses the arguments that government is wasteful so they can privatize services so they can make more money. Social Security is one of the tightest run agencies, or it was until Doge got it and Musk got a hold of it, with I think it's less than a 1% operating expenses. 1%. But if they break it, it has to be privatized. Now it's 5, 6, 7%. And where's that money coming from? It's not coming from the taxes necessarily anymore. Now it's coming from the returns on what your future earnings in retirement or in disability might be. It's going into big business's pocket. Okay, that's the way it is. And for big business in Wall Street, shame on you. Shame on you, shame on you, shame on you. You backed Trump because you thought, oh, he'll get rid of regulations, I can make more money. Okay, let's get rid of the regulations that keep us healthy. Let's get away from the regulations that keep us safe. Here's a fun fact for you guys. Poor people, dead people, they do not generate economy. They do not buy things that you want them to buy. They don't go for the luxury items. That's the plain and simple truth for big business in Wall Street. That is what happens. You keep us poor, you keep us unhealthy or dead without our social safety nets, or because you're dumping toxic waste into our rivers. We don't buy your crap if that's what you do. So instead of just being patient and letting the economy keep building, an economy that was touted worldwide for the best recovery from COVID, and you wanted the fast buck. Nice job. How you liking it so far? Okay, I got a little hot again. Sorry about that. So where do we go from here? And it's a good question. My next few videos, I'm going to talk about how we got here. Because I don't think we want to keep doing the things that we're doing already, because those are tried and true. I don't know that they're enough to meet the moment. I don't think they are, because this moment is very large And it is different because it's a 21st century civil war. It is not the guys and the women who, my Second Right Amendment, they weren't the ones except for on January 6th. I forgot to mention that particular bill. All these other things in the states, and these all been skirmishes for the last decade and a half, maybe, that we didn't recognize. We didn't recognize the bigger picture. And now it's all coming to a head. And when I mention what's saving us is the factions, is we're starting to see those fractures. We need to expand those fractures. We need to turn them on each other. And I'll state it straight out because, quite frankly, they're too stupid. That's what's saving us, is they're too stupid. They can't even lie effectively or the same from day to day. They can't even keep to the same story day to day, hour to hour sometimes. That is actually saving us because it's slowing it down. It's slowing it down for the courts to do what they do, which I need to mention one thing about the courts, because if you're watching, how are you feeling about that unitary executive theory now? Hmm? As an air traffic controller, you plan for multiple scenarios all the time. This is something we did on a regular basis. I still do it. And you always hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. Every arrival is a potential go around. You always plan for the worst. I do that now. Um, there are things happening with the whole sandwich generation thing. I'm putting things in place now. So if they start to become worse, they're already in place. But they don't hurt anything. That's what occlusion is, also. I know I'm getting off track. But that's what inclusion is. It's not taking away. It's adding something that everyone still benefits from, but brings more people into the group. That is inclusion. That is planning. That is the opposite. Well, I guess it's not the opposite. It's comparable, we'll say, to planning for the worst case scenario. With unitary executive theory, with Humphrey's executor, or whatever it is, I'm not a lawyer. If you have principled people in office with integrity, the theories are nice. Worst case scenario, we're pretty close to seeing what that is. And that's what your decisions need to be based upon. You cannot be basing your decisions on what a principled person of integrity who will follow the law would do. You have to base it on who would take advantage of this. How can they take advantage of this? How bad can they make it if we let them have absolute control? Because I'm fairly certain that is not what the framers wanted. So you think about that. Well, I didn't expect to get this hot this many times in this particular video. I apologize for that. What I'd like to see is I'd like you all to do a little homework. Like, what? It's simple. Do you have a favorite recliner, favorite seat on the couch, favorite seat at the kitchen table? Switch it up. Sit somewhere else. Go around the room. Just do that. Take a different route to work. Jog a different direction. Walk a different direction. Walk your dog, to a different park. Whatever it is, do it a little differently. Look at the world a little differently, because this is what this requires. This is not normal. If you continue in patterns that give you normal all the time, and I'm not saying give them up completely, I'm just saying break out of the patterns enough so that your mind starts looking in different places and thinking different things. It's very easy for us to just put our heads down, go to work, say hi at the store or whatever, and pretend it's not happening. It is happening. And I have walked away from fights in my life that I thought were not worth it, where the outcome, one way or another, made no difference. Wasn't going to hurt me, wasn't going to hurt anybody else. It was just a fight. This is not a fight that I can walk away from. The fights that I've always felt were important, I have always fought. You can ask anybody. You can ask union, You can ask FAA management, and both sides will tell you once she gets a bit in her teeth, she's not letting go. So I feel very strongly about it because the more people were stepping up to just say this is wrong and we will not stand for it. We do not consent to our country being this way. That's what we need. But if you're staying in the same patterns, you're not going to observe different things or see it differently from another point of view. And we need creativity in addition to the things that we're already doing. The main groups that we need to be fighting right now, main factions, power and greed and money are their gods. Take the deeper mega. That's their gods. That's what we need to be attacking. We need to siphon their power. Some of it's with our protests and some of it's we need to find other ways. And the money. That's why the Tesla takedown has been so effective. And whoever came with that, brilliant. Make them focus on their money and losing their money. Can we find class action civil suits that we can start filing in 50 states? Let's think outside of the box. Let's figure out how can we do this all legally, peacefully. As long as possible, we need to keep this as peaceful as possible. But that does not mean we cannot use the tools at our disposal. We just have to think about what tools we have that we are not yet using as a society to attack the power, to attack the money beyond just boycotts. So sit somewhere different, walk somewhere different, drive somewhere different, look at the world differently. Start watching newscasts instead of listening, especially if you listen to any of the Fox News crap. Don't listen to the voices. Don't. Just put closed caption on. See the words and say, wow, that really sounds stupid. If you just read the words. Take your news in a little bit differently than you normally have. I'm not saying it has to be a long-term thing all the time, but do it just enough to understand, hey, yeah, this really does work. It might take a few times, but all of a sudden you're going to say, oh, I never saw that before. I've been living in this room. I've been sitting in this room for 20 years, and I never saw that before. Your wife might appreciate it, or your husband, or whoever. So I've rambled long enough. I hope to see you again, and stay safe, stay strong. You're not alone.